Hi, this is going to be a quick ramble through my journey from leaving school to my position and qualification and career as a European patent attorney. I did STEM subjects at school, so double maths, physics and chemistry and general studies, A-levels. I was persuaded to try and get into Oxford, which I managed to do, and I did there a 4-year engineering science degree, a master's as a first degree. In that, I chose to do kind of 2/3 electronics content and 1/3 mechanical engineering content. And at the end of that, I was looking for jobs where I could still use my technical background, but where I wasn't going to be up against other candidates who had more specialist engineering qualifications. So, say, for example, who had just done an engineering degree in mechanical engineering or had just completed a higher qualification such as a PhD. And one of the things that was in my mind as well was that compared to my cohort, I'd done relatively better on the non-technical content in the course. So in order to have accreditation from the engineering institutions, the engineering courses in universities, this applies to pretty much all of them, have some non-technical content, things like economics and management case studies, so that you can show that you're more aware of the environment in which your engineering work might take place. And it was in these written assignments, presentations and so on that, compared to my peers, I'd seemed to have done quite well. So when I saw adverts in the University Career Service for this patent attorney job, which was basically writing about stuff and learning some law, but with a technical underpinning, I thought that would be quite useful, something I could turn my hand to. So I applied for some jobs. I was keen not to work in London when I graduated, which unfortunately is where at that time, about half the patent attorney profession was based, just for historical reasons, that it made sense to be close to the patent office when it was in London, and to the courts, which obviously are still largely based out of London. But I managed to get a job in the north of England, which was great. As part of that job, I was sent to the University of Manchester for a term to do a postgraduate certificate in IP law to give me the background that I needed to get qualified. And then I did on-the-job training for 3.5, 4 years, some professional exams, and managed to then become qualified as a UK chartered patent attorney and also a European patent attorney. I have stayed put. I've only ever had one job since graduation, which has been good for the last 20 years, and I'm now one of the partners that runs the firm that first took me on as a trainee 20 years ago. In terms of my current role, I was given the job once of doing an introduction where you don't just say to new people you meet what your job title is and your position or in the hierarchy, but you actually have to make it more relatable, so you could explain to people what your job role entails or how you could possibly help those people that you're getting to meet. So I did a little introduction where I said, hi, you know that thing, how it feels when someone else takes advantage of your hard work and rips you off? Well, part of my job is to help stop that from happening. So there is this intellectual property system which provides a legal framework for incentivizing inventors, creators to come up with new stuff. Patent attorneys' role in the system is to help get patents granted and to advise on the intellectual property issues around inventions and new product developments, so that our clients can get the most out of the IP system. So the things that I would typically do on a day-to-day basis are to speak to inventors to understand what they've come up with, to turn that into that understanding into a written description of their invention, which captures the essence of what it is that they've invented, and which I can then try and send through the patent office process in order to get a patent granted, so that they can have hopefully some exclusivity and can commercially exploit the work that they've done to the best of their ability without having to worry about people ripping them off and copying them. So core skills there are analysing the technical documents to understand what the inventors have actually come up with, and being easy to teach, because obviously if it is an invention you haven't seen it before. I need to have good written skills so that I can understand, I can write down something in a comprehensible way which could embody the new concepts or the new features of the invention, and do so in such a way that it's differentiated from what other people have done before, the earlier state of the art. And then I need to have a kind of understanding of the legal process through which the patent can be granted and enforced, which is quite good. Right, okay, so that's kind of day-to-day job opportunities. What could you look for as a profession or a career in the IP professions? So if you have a science or engineering degree and are interested in the kind of role I've just explained, then obviously patent attorney would be the typical path. The qualification requirements that I mentioned for sitting professional exams after 3.5, 4 years, the European equivalent qualification that is not an EU thing, so it's unaffected by Brexit, requires you to have enough technical content in your degree to prove that you are actually able to do the technical part of the job, speaking to the inventors. So unless you have a bachelor's at least in some STEM subject, this is not going to be an opportunity for you. However, in the firm that I work with, there are other people who are not got a technical background and who still work in IP as trademark attorneys or as IP solicitors or barristers, who generally come at it from a more kind of legal perspective and then deal with the more legal side of the job. So in disputes, for example, or licensing, working hand in hand with the IP professionals for the different things. Also in our firm, we have other roles that people could do, such as IP paralegal. So that's a kind of a more junior role, but with great responsibilities. And it's often seen as a good way into the profession. So you can show that you've got the right kind of attitude and attention to detail and understanding of the IP system through doing the paralegal role, and then get made up to a trainee attorney type role. Elsewhere in the industry, the kind of industrial-based role, so I work in a private practice advising clients, but if you worked in a big corporate department, you might be a manager whose job was responsible for invention harvesting or licensing in or out of technology, so advising on deals there around the intellectual property. Also, the other side of the coin from my job, the patent office examiners, so the people that actually consider inventions in the patent office as to whether patents are going to be granted. That's another career opportunity that people with this kind of background might be interested in. In terms of the skills needed, the key one I would say would probably be to have a kind of logical or analytical mind with good attention to detail, so that you can properly understand what the inventions you're being asked to look at involve, and then to consider that content with kind of good precision, particularly precision in the written skills where you express what that invention is in writing. There's also something which I wasn't too keen on to begin with, but which obviously I've grown to kind of embrace, which is the interpersonal skills. You've got to establish a connection with the inventors so that they can open up to you and disclose what it is they've come up with, and also from a professional point of view with clients, so that you can build an understanding of where their business is and where the invention fits and how important it is to them, because you've got to be commercially aware if you're selling your services on an open market with competitors and to clients who may choose to not use you or not to get involved in the system at all, that one of the risks is that if you're very analytical, you look at this as a very interesting legal or intellectual exercise, that you haven't got that kind of commercial awareness of why you're being asked to do it in the first place and who's paying for the work and the advice that you're going to give. Also, a lot of the work that I do at the patent office is quite deadline driven, and there can be high pressure to perform because of the commercial value at stake in some of these disputes. So, the ability to work to deadlines and to handle that kind of pressure is also kind of important. For the future, you might often see on the back of products things that say things like made in China but designed in the UK. And as we transition to a knowledge-based economy rather than manufacturing, and as we see that entrepreneurship is a way of a mechanism for enabling the UK to have economic growth and prosperity, I think there is a good future for the supporting industries like the IP industry in going forward in that kind of world. We have seen some commoditization of our services, so some of the more basic things have been kind of computerized or set up for kind of bulk processing by clever people, but quite a lot of the job, the central parts of the role, are hard to computerize. I don't see AI patent drafting. I don't see courts being replaced with computer arbitration over disputes. So in a legal sense, I think there always is going to be a place for the human mind in writing patent applications and spotting loopholes in other people's patent protection, and then resolving the rights and wrongs of any dispute in a court type situation. So that's possibly in the future. Another thing which might be in the future, and one of the things that often puts people off our job, is the difficulty in terms of qualification, the exams that I mentioned earlier. Perhaps in time there will be a non-exam based route in order to get qualified, so that people don't have the ongoing stress of performing, in a week where you've got 3 or 4 very difficult exams to get through. But I haven't got any timescale for that one yet. It's still exam based at the moment. In terms of advice that I might give in terms of getting into the profession, I'd say obviously don't close off any doors. So you need that science or technical degree to get in to become a patent attorney. You probably should consider, if this is the future, whether the areas that you study in university are ones that have good commercialization potential, because obviously the patent system has that on one side of it, as well as the technical and scientific aspects. So we get a lot of job applications in our firm for people that have got an astrophysics degree. Well, I'm sure that is very intellectually rigorous and might be, suitable for satisfying curiosity of inquiring intellectual minds, but there aren't that many people out there making rockets. So, there's not that many people out there into the very hard physics, which has, maybe away from the things that people want to buy and where you could see value being added to companies. So that's one a bit of advice. I'd also say that probably, rather than trying to get into IP early on at some low level, really the way to get into the job would be to work on demonstrating that you can have that kind of analytical mindset and you've got those written technical writing skills. So that's probably more relevant than focusing in on early stage learning about what the patent system is like, or some of the deadlines, or some of the kind of admin around the system. So yeah, those are my kind of bits of advice on how to get into it. The other thing I would say is that there's a really good website which has been created by people inside the industry to encourage people from across the spectrum into the different job roles. It's called Inside Careers. It's called Careers in Ideas. That's careersinideas.org.uk, and you can put in there the different things that you might be interested in doing, look through some of those job roles that I mentioned, and that would give you a great place to start for further research on where to get a job in the IP industry, potentially a patent attorney or one of the other roles. Okay, thanks, bye.